I'll do some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Killer, Mommy. Killer.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
This is my boomstick. Here's Johnny.
I have to return some videotapes.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Hello and welcome to All Things Horror. My name is Ben and I'm joined here with Matt. If you're unfamiliar with the show, each week we choose a movie to break down and review. We give our honest opinions and rate it from 1 to 10. This week we're going to be talking about The Fly from 1986. But before we do, let's take a quick look at the trailer.
I think you're making a mistake. I think you really want to talk to me.
Sorry, I have 3 other interviews to do before this party's over.
Yeah, but they're not working on something that'll change the world as we know it.
They say they are.
Yeah, but they're lying.
There is a limit, even to the imagination.
Human teleportation, molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging.
Where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
Something went wrong, Seth. When you went through, something went wrong.
You are about to go beyond that limit.
Those weird hairs that were growing out of your back, I had them analyzed. But they were definitely not human.
If you saw how scared and angry and desperate he is.
I'm sure Typhoid Mary was a very nice person, too, when you saw her socially.
No!
You're afraid to be destroyed and recreated, aren't you?
You're changing, Seth. Everything about you is changing.
Oh, no. What's happening to me? Am I dying?
I want to know what's going on.
What does the disease want?
Wants to turn me into something else.
Oh, no.
A fly got into the transmitter pod with me that first time when I was alone.
Don't go back to it.
Could be contagious.
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Help me. Please, help me.
In this chilling remake of the horror classic, Jeff Goldblum stars as the overly ambitious scientist who accidentally merges himself with a housefly while conducting a bizarre teleporting experiment. Now his journalist girlfriend suddenly finds herself caring for a hideous creature whose insect half gradually begins to take over. This film was directed by David Cronenberg and the main cast consists of Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis and John Getz. So Matt, have you seen this film before?
Yeah, so the last time I saw this was probably about 20 years ago until I watched it recently for what we're doing today. I had no memories of it whatsoever. I couldn't remember anything. I'd even forgotten that it was David Cronenberg. I was like, oh, I've seen History of Violence, and like, strangely, I've seemed to have avoided a lot of his, some real horror classics, which might be that something we've discussed maybe we look at in the future, which would be pretty cool. Like, for example, you mentioned The Brood to me once, and I was like, oh yeah, I've not seen that. I've not seen Scanners either, so I really want to see that. I think this is because, and I traced this back, I saw Videodrome on holiday as a small child, and it scared me to death. Not in a good way, like in a kind of real sickly kind of way, and I maybe subconsciously avoided Cronenberg films ever since. So yeah, it's really cool to get to watch The Fly and revisit it, because I had zero expectations. It was all felt like brand new to me. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I'd say this is definitely his most known film that he's done. It's really up there as one of the greatest.
Yeah, even if they've not heard of the sort of the modern one, if you're into your classic horror, if you like I'm a massive Vincent Price fan, and it's on my list of Vincent Price films to watch. I've kind of working my way through his all of his films, as many as I can find, and I'm kind of at the moment watching all the Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe ones that he did as well. So yeah, I was like, okay, so this will tie in nicely with the modern Fly, and then I can go back and watch the 50s one.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've actually seen the original one like properly all the way through. I've definitely seen bits of it.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot different to this one.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I think actually Vincent Price said that they had a really nice interaction. They wrote to each other, or they spoke to each other, thanked each other for making contact with each other, and then Vincent Price was like, yeah, but you went a little bit too far.
Yeah.
Which is a different generational approach, isn't it? I suppose you've got the kind of really sloppy version, not sloppy in terms of filmmaking, but just sort of gooey modern one compared to what you'd see in an old classic old horror, a little bit more melodrama with it.
Yeah, I didn't realise how many there were. I mean, the original had 2 sequels. The Return of the Fly being in 1959 and The Curse of the Fly in 1965.
Yeah, so it must have been popular. It must have done well.
Yeah, and even this one as well had a sequel in 1989.
Yeah, strangely, I think I might have, just the way my brain works, I may have seen the second one before I saw the first one. I just, maybe on TV or something like that. And maybe it was just, again, my subconscious avoiding David Cronenberg.
Yeah, this has got pretty good ratings all round. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' rating is at 93% and the audience rating being at 83%. Yeah, I think it's funny, isn't it? Because obviously horror it doesn't get represented enough or well enough or at all at the Oscars. But there was talk at the time of, would Jeff Goldblum be nominated for an Oscar for this? And, we're talking in 2023, Jamie Lee Curtis has won an Oscar, but not necessarily for a horror film. It's not even horror adjacent, but she's known for horror, and it's that didn't put them off giving her an Oscar, 30 odd years, 40 odd years after being in loads of horror films. Yeah. So it's a bit of a stigma, it's a bit of a strange thing, but it shows how well received this was that they even talk about it in the conversation for Best Actor. And I think it did win for was it special effects or makeup? I think it won the Oscar for makeup. Yeah, I think it might have. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That's a good sign that it was well received. Also, financially did really well, didn't it? So your studio's going to ask him to make sequels. Not that Cronenberg really does sequels.
Yeah, no, he didn't do the sequel to this one.
So yeah, that's again shows you kind of how well received it was, but the public actually wanting to go out and buy a ticket and go and see it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, their budget was only 15 million, and in the box office they made 60 million. So very good.
Yeah. So yeah, there's no wonder they wanted to do a sequel, even if he's not attached to it. They're like, yeah, we want to make this. We want to make as much money out of this as we can.
So the special effects makeup designers, have you seen any of the other films that they've worked on? I think Chris Wallace and Stephen Dupuis. I think that's how you say it, Dupuis.
Okay, go on.
It's quite a long, impressive list, to be honest. I mean, just some honourable mentions. They did the original Piranha. They did Star Wars Return of the Jedi, RoboCop, Jason X, Gremlins, Tales from the Crypt, and even some of the Marvel films like Venom and Ant-Man.
Right, oh. There is a weird, with the people who've worked on this, a weird kind of range of films that they've done. When like you mentioned, like I always like Jason X. I love Jason X. I don't care.
Oh, I do too. I love Jason X. I think it's great.
Yeah, I saw that at the cinema and like on for some reason on Halloween, and as we went in, and they were like, "Okay, we're going to prepare the cinema for you. Like it's going to be like a little special surprise." And we're like, "Oh, should be interesting." And we went in and like walked through the door, and somebody just threw like a skeleton over the top of the thing, and then it was like, right, go to your seats, and that was it. It was a bit odd, but yeah, so it always sticks in my head. But I love it. I think it's hilarious. It's really fun. Yeah, it's a great film, Jason X. I will fight anybody who doesn't like Jason X, and I will lose. But like, yeah, the people who were on it, like the director of photography, I was looking at his, and it's like he's done 141 films. Yes, he's done The Fly, great Hitchcockian look, Reanimator feel to it. It just looks great. But he's done like Santa Paws, Pup Academy, like real stuff. But then like Scream, and again another one that I'm going to say I love unapologetically. He did Freddy Got Fingered as well. So like, oh my God. Yeah, that's a real range. I guess if you've done 141 films, but like as a director of photography, it's not like say always the same genre or even the same type or even the same filmmakers. I think that's really fascinating. And like the soundtrack, Howard Shore, he's gone on and done The Fly, the opera. But he also did the Mooby the Cow theme in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So it's like, yeah, he's also, this is the hardest sentence I'm probably ever going to say. He scored the Brando film, The Score. So Howard Shore scored the score.
Howard Shore scored the score.
Which I don't know what that means, but it's just a very strange sentence. That was in my notes. I was like, I must tell you that. I don't know why. He scored the score. Shore scored the score. But The Fly, the opera, would be an interesting one to see. He wrote all the music for that.
Yeah, it's like that. The whole score to this movie has a very deep operatic kind of vibe to it.
Yes.
Every aspect of the movie just has this feel like with what's happening with the pods, and I won't get into spoilers just yet, but how the whole movie ends, you really feel what Gina Davis is feeling towards the end.
Yeah, there's like a kind of almost like operatic Hunchback of Notre Dame kind of feel near the end. It's funny because I was listening to Charles Band's audiobook of like Full Moon and all the different films, and when his brother scored Reanimator, he just listened to the theme from Psycho and just sort of changed it slightly. And I think a lot of films that are going for that kind of feel, they definitely listen to like sort of themes like Psycho and maybe The Birds and things like that, and then just tweak them, and that gives you that you know what you're getting. Or maybe that's why The Fly is so good. You think you know what you're getting, and then it gets sort of stickier than what you would get in a Hitchcock film.
Yeah, it's got a relatively small cast for this film, really.
Yeah. Like I haven't seen the boyfriend Stathis, the actor. I didn't recognise him from anything other than this.
No, I didn't either. John Getz, I think his name is.
Yeah, I don't know. I literally never heard of him. And he's a really interesting character, isn't he? Because he's not very likeable, but he has a lot of hero things to do.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Like the way he treats her isn't very nice, and the way he behaves is pretty abominable to her. Yet he's the guy again, no spoilers so far. He's kind of expected to kind of try and save the day. And that's quite a big part in the sequel, if I remember.
Yeah, I think it is. I think he is the main character in the sequel.
So it's a funny one. Again, it's like it hangs off the two main characters, and she's brilliant in it. I think Gina Davis is really good in it because she's not just playing like kind of helpless woman number one kind of character. And this is before she really hit the big time, like in sort of the 90s with Thelma and Louise. Because I've been listening to podcast, You Must Remember This, and they're doing erotic 90s at the moment, and it's really interesting. And they were talking about Gina Davis and like her being in Thelma and Louise and how they marketed that and stuff like that. And it made me think, oh blimey, she actually wasn't a huge star when she did this. But then Jeff Goldblum wasn't Jeff Goldblum, was he? He was more of an actor rather than a sort of eccentric character that he is now.
Yeah, and I guess the only other somewhat main cast member would be David Cronenberg himself as the doctor or gynecologist.
Yes. Yeah, and isn't it perfect that he plays a gynecologist? Because like that's exactly the sort of kind of creepy, not creepy because gynecologists aren't all creepy, but like kind of up close and personal, uncomfortable sort of films he makes. That is exactly the kind of another career you could see him going in places where he shouldn't be going.
Yeah. So the running time for this film is 96 minutes.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, you think that's perfect length for a film, yeah?
Almost, yeah. I like a nice tight 90 minutes. Yeah, I think it's got to be a tight 90 is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree. I think the pacing was just perfect.
Yeah.
Nothing was too rushed and nothing was dragged out too long. I think that was a perfect length and it flowed just really nicely.
Yeah. What do you think about the beginning? Because I thought that was a really clever beginning. You literally get to know him and her straight away. They're like you're straight into their conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great beginning to a film.
Yeah, I really like that.
Not a lot of films really do that where you get to meet the main character, but I suppose they're both kind of the main character, really.
Yeah, and she's not a stereotype. She's really well written for the 80s. Like she's not just kind of there to scream and run away or whatever. Like even the way she uses like sex kind of transactionally, and she's not necessarily judged, or she's not judged. Like because you kind of root for her more than you root for any other character. And even when he brings that woman, oh sorry, spoilers. I don't know. Is it a spoiler to say that there is another woman in the film? That's not a spoiler. And you can't, when she pops up, you kind of feel like, that's sad. I was hoping these two guys would make it work, even if he is a giant fly. And again, that can't be a spoiler, can it? But it's called The Fly.
No, I think you're all right with that. Yeah. Right, before we get into the spoiler section, because I think you are itching to get there.
Yes.
Who would you recommend this movie for? Obviously, I wouldn't recommend it as a date film.
No, I wrote exactly the same thing, yeah.
I mean, I've seen this movie a lot of times, and every time I think I've watched it by myself.
Yeah.
Mainly from the pure grossness of the movie. No one wants to watch it.
I mean, it's not going to offend people in the sense of old-fashioned behaviours and sort of the way people are treated. Not that I can think of, not off the top of my head anyway. And the interaction, the male-female interaction is really good. If you like body horror, it's for you. But that would probably go for, I'd imagine, most Cronenberg films. Even like A History of Violence and things like that, they have those moments where something happens that would make you look away or make you go, ugh. So yeah, if you like a bit of goo, if you like, okay, I'm going to say a spoiler. We're going to say one tiny spoiler. It's not going to ruin the film though. So if you like Inside Out baboons, or insect movies that are better than Ant-Man, then yeah, for me it's definitely like, it's not my favourite horror film. It's not. I don't think it's a bad film at all. I think it's a good film. I think, but again, if you're a little bit squeamish, it's probably not for you.
Okay, right. I think it's time to head into the spoilers now. So if you haven't seen the film and you don't want it to be ruined for you, now is the time to duck out and go watch it.
Spoiler warning.
Okay, so the movie starts with the brilliant but eccentric scientist Seth Brundle. He meets journalist Veronica at the press event party that's being held by Bartok Science Industries. That's the company that is funding Seth Brundle's work. He takes her back to his lab / home, where he shows her his teleportation pods. What did you make of this first opening sequence?
Well, I was dying to talk about that before, because we did kind of touch on it, didn't we, a little bit? I think it's a really great opening. I think you get his character, her character. There's a little bit of chemistry straight away. We're not taking ages on setup. I really like how it gets straight into the story. It's a couple of minutes in some party. I think it's like Isotope magazine, which I think is the greatest name for a magazine for like a science science thing that she works for. Is it Isotope magazine she works for? They've definitely seen Isotope magazine somewhere. There's definitely a thing with that in it. But yeah, the opening, it's great. It gets straight into it. You kind of understand the idea, the kind of secretive nature of what he's doing, and how he's getting a little bit more confident and wanting to share that. And obviously, because he likes her, he wants to kind of show off a little bit, doesn't he?
Yeah, he is a bit of a show-off, yeah. He's a little bit creepy, don't you think?
Yeah, there's...
Like, he's kind of unintentionally creepy. Like, he's got this charm to him, but he's creepy.
Yeah, and also, I suppose what undercuts that is that she's so confident and, like, doesn't have any kind of... Like, you almost feel like she's probably being... If anyone's being creepy or anyone's being kind of pushy, she's quite okay with that. She makes it very clear.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't really seem to mind at all, because they go back to his lab, which seems to be in the middle of nowhere, up like a million flights of stairs, behind these great big metal sliding doors.
Yeah, it's a better, more realistic warehouse than Malignant for the police station. And there's just a massive like aircraft carrier, air hangar. It doesn't look like a police station or anything. At least in this, you can kind of believe that he has his little lab set up in his apartment. You know, like a kind of cool area of town. I don't know, but yeah, I know what you mean. It is a bit odd. Lots of steps.
Yeah, I think any woman would have got the hell out of there really quickly, especially when he makes that joke where he says, "Oh, I can't let you leave now."
Yeah, and I think that's the moment when you can kind of think, "Oh, she's here for a reason." I think it's quite clever that she's here because she's trying to get something out of him. It's not necessarily the other way around. I think that's quite a smart bit of writing, because again, like, you'll never leave kind of thing, and you think, oh, what's going to happen? But she's like, I'm okay, because I kind of want to know what's going on here for no reason.
So he teleports one of her stockings that she quite willingly just took off for him. I mean, she could have gave him anything.
Yeah.
But she was just like, here, take my stocking.
Yeah, the thought did cross my mind. It was like, yeah, she's definitely making her point there, about, you know, she's kind of not so subtly making him know that she's available, I guess. I don't know, not available, but interested. But it's quite natural feeling their relationship. Like you say, there's always a moment where it could fall into kind of he's a bit creepy, but she always seems to uncut it with a little bit of like, she's a go-getter who's kind of not intimidated by any man at all, and definitely not him.
Yeah, definitely. I was under the impression that he knew that she was a journalist, and that's kind of the reason why he invited her back. But obviously she starts recording him, and he was all freaked out. He was like, oh no, you can't record.
Like, whoa, yeah.
What, did you know that? Or was that just me?
Maybe the sort of... Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh. So the only thing I could put it down to is that he's just so confident in himself and what he's doing that would be interesting, that he would be interesting, that she would just literally forget about being the only reason she could forget about her job, and the only reason she could be there is because she's interested in him. And it's an absolute shock that she's like been recording the conversation, like, what, you're not just here because I'm an amazingly wonderful scientist? Because that kind of like hubris and alcohol fueled confidence comes out later on. And it's interesting because normally scientists are played as like really sort of nebbish and awkward and geeky, but he's actually he is a little bit of those, but he's also really like super confident and quite arrogant about his findings, I suppose, because it is pretty amazing teleportation.
So Veronica then goes back to her boss Stathis, who we later discover is her ex-boyfriend, with the tape, and he just doesn't believe anything. He thinks that Seth is just a con man, just doesn't believe it's real. What was your impressions of Stathis? I mean, he's a bit of an arsehole. Very unlikable.
So you can't see why she would want to go out with him. There's nothing, again, like we mentioned earlier, there's nothing about him that's like kind of, this guy is going to have some heroic actions to do in the film. He's just like archetypal 80s sleazy boss. And again, like a lot of these films, when you see in the 80s where the boss is these boss, and they used to go out with each other, you just think, why? But also, that might be because of the power dynamic. There might have been felt that she couldn't not go out with him, if that makes sense. Or even there's a kind of, it's a weird one because he's just kind of nothing about him that's attractive to, certainly I don't think there is. And she doesn't seem to show any interest in him at all throughout the whole film. Really, all she just wants him to be alive. She's quite happy for him to stay alive. That's about the most sort of kindness we see towards him. But she has used sex transactionally with Seth. Maybe she used it with Stathis. I don't know. Like she's quite confident in who she is, but she makes it clear when they're in the shop together. She's just like, no, nothing will be happening again. So that's quite interesting relationship. But again, power dynamic isn't like she has to put up with his nonsense. She just has a go right back, and she comes across as stronger than both the male characters. Actually, I think.
Yeah, like we see in the next scene when she goes home to her apartment and she hears a noise and discovers that he's just taken a shower in her apartment.
Yeah, that's just an obvious thing that you do when you split up with somebody. if you want to get arrested, definitely.
And even when she asks for her key back, he's just like, no, I think I'll hold on to it.
Yeah, I might need a shower. Yeah, I might need a shower. I don't have a shower at my house.
Okay, so we now get Veronica start to document Seth, and they found out that although the pods can teleport inanimate objects perfectly, it struggles to teleport live tissue. And we see that when they teleport a baboon, and that's when you get the inside out baboon scene.
Yeah, R.I.P. That was, yeah. Again, that's a testament to really good practical effects.
Yeah.
That it is so gross.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. I mean, it's a very good visual.
Yeah.
Especially when, the smoke dies down and you just see it in there just flopping around. I did see an article about the baboon. His name was Typhoon, and apparently everyone in the production team had to keep reminding themselves that he is just a wild animal, and it was only the Wrangler and Jeff Goldblum could handle Typhoon. And there was a scene where Typhoon got freaked out by the flashing lights of the telepods.
Oh.
And he actually broke the door off of the telepod to get out of it.
So it's called Typhoon?
Yeah, Typhoon, yeah.
Oh my word, I know Typhoon. Not personally, but I watched a really bad film called Order of the Black Phoenix, and he plays, it's kind of a knockoff James Bond film, and the main character is called Duncan Jacks, and his sidekick is a baboon that wears like all the same things as him, so like wears like a tuxedo, and it's played by Typhoon. And he was so successful. The film wasn't successful. There was a sequel, but it kind of stopped. That Typhoon went on and had his own film, like got cast in another film. People might be aware of it, I don't know, called Shakma, about like a crazy baboon. So he's been in more films than a lot of people. A lot of people.
Wow,
and
that's
yeah,
interesting.
it was Typhoon, no way.
So as they experiment with the invention, Seth and Veronica begin to form a relationship. Using two stakes, one as a control and the other teleported, Seth discovers that the machine is creating a synthetic version of biological material rather than the object itself. So that's the next morning, and we see Veronica leave, and Stathis is outside in his car, assumingly been there all night, just stalking her, waiting for her to leave. And then she goes to a shop to buy Seth like a new leather jacket, because we discover that he's only got one type of clothes, like the same suit over and over again in his wardrobe.
Yeah, he's like Simon Cowell. He just wears like the same clothes all the time.
Yeah. So we see them bump into each other in the shop, and he is just such an arsehole, being the most creepy, jealous person.
Yeah, and she's made it very clear that she's not interested anymore. It was a pretty cool 80s leather jacket. It's the sort of thing I would have liked to have had when I was a kid and walked into school wearing that.
So Seth reprograms the system to understand the makeup of living tissue, and he successfully teleports a second baboon. You know, it was at this point where I was starting to wonder, like, where's he getting these baboons from? He's just got an endless amount of baboons he's just turning inside out.
Yeah. Is it the same baboon? I'm asking you. I haven't got a clue. They've just used the same one and said it was his brother.
Yeah, probably. I would imagine so.
Yeah, it's just like they've got like five brothers lined up. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah, it's true. I don't know. It's just like he just nips down to the local baboon shop, picks up a few baboons, and nobody asks any questions.
I did notice, I think it's more towards the end of the film, where the camera does a pan of the lab and you get a shot of some empty cages.
Right. Okay.
But I don't think it ever states like how many times he's done it.
Yeah.
Although I did find in the deleted scenes, I'll touch on it later, but it does reference him teleporting other animals.
Oh, cool.
That's really quite interesting. But I'll touch on that later on, because there's other deleted scenes that I want to talk about towards the end.
All right, because we don't get, because I watched it on Disney Plus. Don't have the deleted scenes, so yeah, it's interesting.
So Veronica departs before they can celebrate. Seth worries that she is rekindling her relationship with Stathis, but she actually went to confront him about a veiled threat spurred by his jealousy of Seth, and basically wants to publish the telepod story without her consent. Seth gets quite drunk and teleports himself alone, unaware that a housefly has entered the transmitter pod with him. And when he comes out of the pod, he seems relatively normal.
Yeah, and like, if anything, early on, it just makes him really athletic, really good at sex. So he's like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, I
really like sugar.
Yeah. Yeah, really, I just don't like lights anymore. That's probably my favourite bit, where he just bats the light when he's walking out. Like, just smashes the light because it's irritating him. I think that's just such a nice touch. That's always a good sign of a a really classy, well-made film when they have time for these little moments, you know.
Yeah, who knew that flies were so strong and had such a high sex drive?
Yeah, he's super sexy. Yeah, like, and women just love flies. Yeah, they just.
Yeah, we see Seth doing some crazy workouts in the lab, like lifting himself upside down on a chair and just swinging from the pipes.
Yeah, you imagine Jeff Goldblum watches this back and just like, I was amazing. Look at me when I was younger.
Yeah, yeah, because he plays everything really. Like every part of him transitioning throughout the film, it's all him. Obviously, apart from that scene there.
Yeah.
Where they have like a stunt double to do all the crazy acrobats.
Even the early ones are almost just as impressive because it's the way he looks at her or moves his head slightly, just to give a little clue that something's not quite right. He's just kind of buzzing around or talking a little bit faster. It's really cool. Little mannerisms. They change before the effects change, and maybe again that's probably why he is justifiably saying that's probably one of the best acting performances of the year. Because I think it was like who was it who won? I think 86 or 87. I know Michael Douglas won, and then Paul Newman won. Well, okay, Wall Street was a big film. It was Greed is Good, But you've also got Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid for this. So you've got the tagline, you've got the, he's really, I think the more I think about it, the more he should at least have had an Oscar nomination. Going through all these different stages.
Yeah, I mean, that tagline, Be Afraid, Be Very Afraid, I mean, everybody knows that line. Even if you don't know the film.
Yeah, even if you don't know the film.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you don't like horror and you've never heard of The Fly, you know that quote.
Yeah, that's it. That's in pop culture.
Yeah. So Veronica becomes increasingly concerned about Seth's deterioration and his sanity, as well as the strange hairs that are growing from his back. And we see that earlier after the first sex scene where he gets... he cuts his back. I think he rolls on some kind of microchip, and it's that wound there where these really thick, bristly hairs start growing from it. And plus he starts getting sores and stuff on his face. When she starts expressing her worries, Seth starts getting really aggressive and insists that process is beneficial and that he wants her to do it, and he tries to force her to undergo the teleportation, but she refuses. And he kind of freaks out and he says, well, if you won't, I'll get someone else. And he goes off to the bar where he finds another woman to bring back.
Yeah.
And that's when we get the arm wrestling scene, and that will forever be ingrained in my mind.
I mean, not to that extent, but things like that do happen quite a lot, don't they? People arm wrestling. Like there was a guy on a live stream before a football event last week who broke his arm or snapped his arm through arm wrestling. I was at uni with a guy who was a DJ, and he couldn't DJ for ages because he was messing around arm wrestling, and he snapped his arm wrestling. So like, I guess it happens, but maybe not to this extent where the whole thing just goes squish. Yeah.
So he brings a woman from the bar back to the lab. They have sex, and he is trying to force her into the pod. She doesn't want to. She says, she's afraid, and that's when Veronica steps in and says, yeah, be afraid, be very afraid. So they leave. The new woman runs off, and he kicks out Veronica. And then he goes to the bathroom, and that's when he starts pulling off his fingernails. And I'm assuming that's when he's really starting to realise, there's something wrong with him. So he reruns the teleportation sequence and discovers that the computer got confused because there was two separate life forms, and he realises then that he has actually fused himself with a fly. What did you make of the visuals of the technology he's using here, like the computer kind of zooming out from the hairs and then showing that it's a fly?
it's like your BBC Micro kind of green screen.
Yeah.
It's probably running off less than a phone would be now. He's like there's voice recognition, and which is quite futuristic, I guess.
Yeah.
So, even though obviously it's an important, it's there for story reasons, isn't it? So it doesn't recognise his voice later on when he changes. So that's really quite effective because it's like it doesn't know who I am, it doesn't recognise me, I don't recognise me. I think that's quite a cool little touch using technology.
Seth continues to deteriorate, losing body parts along with his human appearance. After several weeks, he reconnects with Veronica and reveals that he is becoming a hybrid of human and insect, which he has nicknamed Brundlefly. And he started vomiting on his food, and I think you can tell he's been kind of doing this for a while now, because his shirt is all covered in vomit.
Yeah, he's got into the habit of eating that way, and
it's like he doesn't realise he was doing it, because I think he picked up a donut in front of Veronica, and before he ate it, he just vomited on it. And the shock on her face, he then realised, oh, that's disgusting.
Yeah, sorry about that. Forgot. It's just how I do things now. Yeah, if you're going to be with me, you're going to have to accept this about me now.
Yeah.
If you truly love me.
Yeah, and that when he touches his ear and his ear falls off, the shock, the reaction that Gina Davis has, that's actually a genuine reaction.
Oh, right, okay.
No one told her, and Cronenberg just thought it was great, so he left it in the film. So that's actually her real, genuine reaction to watching his ear fall off.
Oh, cool. I guess it's weird, isn't it, things like that, because there's the other extreme of that. Like, that's quite harmless, I guess, and then there's the kind of thing where somebody does something horrific to someone to see what they'll do, which I'm not a big believer in, but I think in that case that's quite a naturalistic, interesting way of doing it. I'm sure that she was probably like, oh, I'm glad you left that in.
And we see him put all his body parts in his medicine cabinet in the bathroom, and he calls it his Brundle Museum of Natural History.
Nice. That's his sort of Herbert West sort of Reanimator kind of bits and pieces of people that I find quite interesting. I find that stuff quite funny, because it's kind of cartoony, isn't it? It's not like I wouldn't sit down and read a book about some serial killer who did that, but I could watch Brundlefly do that. Like, it's a movie. It's fun.
Veronica discovers that she's pregnant and has this nightmare that she's given birth, and it's a huge maggot.
That's like in Seminoid. That's like alien impregnating woman in Seminoid kind of scene that, like, it took me back to that. It's like really uncomfortable. That's David Cronenberg being a gynecologist. Basically.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's how we. Yeah. I don't think any woman would sign up if they knew he was their actual gynecologist. Like, I'll wait for the next guy, please. Yeah. Wow. That is that's like a dream sequence, unlike any other dream sequence.
She demands that Stathis persuades the doctor to perform an abortion in the middle of the night, but Seth abducts her before the procedure. He kind of grabs her and jumps out the window.
Yeah, that's his Hunchback of Notre Dame moment. That I wasn't sure. That was so dramatic and so operatic, like King Kong, Fay Ray, Hunchback of Notre Dame, like stealing her. I wasn't sure if that was still part of the dream sequence, because it felt kind of dreamy. I was looking around the hospital room to see if there was any kind of like weird bright colours or dreamy kind of, but no, that was really happening. And smashes off through the window. He's like, bye.
Yeah. So he kidnaps her and takes her to the top of the building and begs her to carry the child full term, because that's his last remnant of humanity.
Yeah. That's quite touching, isn't it? That's quite a well acted scene, considering what they're talking about is ridiculous. It's actually quite, there's real emotion there, which is must be really hard to do.
Yeah, we do seem to get a lot more heavy hitting emotions towards the end, especially this final scene here.
Yeah.
So Stathis breaks into Steph's lab with a shotgun, but Seth disables him using his corrosive vomit to destroy Stathis' hand and foot, stopping just short of vomiting acid on his face when Veronica screams at him to stop.
And I'm okay with all of that. I was like, that's okay.
Yeah, he had it coming, really.
Yeah. I was like, you should be nicer to people.
You know, the stuff they used to make that vomit was honey, eggs and milk.
No way. So how do they get... So what... Because it's like bubbling as well, or not? Just, I suppose that's just the noise, maybe. Maybe I'm hearing that rather than seeing it, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow. Because I thought it was kind of like... I don't know. Yeah, wow. That's blown my mind. I shall make some of my own later on. Get in the kitchen. What are you making? Well, you don't want to know.
Fly sick. Seth reveals to Veronica that he will use the telepods to fuse the two of them together along with their unborn child into a single entity to become the ultimate family. Yes. During a struggle, she tears off his jaw and triggers his transformation into a monstrous insectoid human creature.
Yeah, he just sort of crumbles away, doesn't he? He's just like...
yeah, once she pulls that jaw off, he just kind of crumbles apart and becomes the Fly.
And then you've got no more Seth, really. There isn't really Seth anymore, is there? Or is there? I don't know.
A little bit.
I guess. Yeah, a bit. Stathis has got a gun. He's not very good at using it, has he? Obviously, this has kind of just happened, but I was thinking, like, maybe if it had gone with like a rolled up newspaper or like
a fly squat.
Yeah. These things pop in my head when I'm watching like the most dramatic moments of films. But Stathis doesn't even get that gun off really much, does he? Until he loses his hand. Like that body melting and like you said, the bile. I didn't know what the bile was made out of. It's really good. That's a really good scene. It's like there's so much happening and again it's quick. That moves along really fast. That's not like a 30 minute fight scene like at the end of a Marvel movie or something. That's like all happens within a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think it's perfect pacing, this end scene.
Yeah, and Stathis is like a rubbish hero as well. he doesn't manage to do. He just gets in the way really of anything.
Seth traps Veronica in the first telepod and he puts himself in the other one and begins the countdown. Stathis recovers his shotgun and severs the cables connecting Veronica's telepod to the computer. You know, I was kind of expecting him to just shoot the computer. I mean, there's a lot of cables on that floor. He could have shot one and it still could have worked.
True.
You know, you kill the computer, you shut everything down.
Before the days of wireless as well, so lots of things to aim at.
Yeah. Seth breaks halfway out of his own pod, but the fusion process is already activated, and it gruesomely amalgamating him with a big chunk of the telepod. Seth crawls to Veronica and places the shotgun barrel against his head, silently begging her to end his suffering. She tearfully fires, killing him, and falls to her knees in despair.
Yeah, it's like a sort of sudden cut-off point at the end of the film, isn't it? As well, it just goes straight to the credits. Like after the sort of things that happen at the end of the film, it's like done. Like it's almost like Cronenberg's just going, and I don't want any sequels. We're done. This is the end of my story. Good night, everyone. Because he is done with it, I guess. But I do quite like that. It ends perfectly. I think it's a good way of finishing it. You don't need like what's happening to her the next day. We don't need to know that, really, do we?
No. I mean, this could have had a whole different feel to it if the score was different. This whole end scene had a big, powerful, orchestral build-up feel to it. So I'm glad they had it like that.
And I guess when he's writing or when he's scoring the film, Howard Shore, he's probably thinking in his head like of a big opera building to a crescendo. It makes perfect sense then, doesn't it, that he did The Fly, the opera.
Okay, right, let's get on to rating this movie. So from a score from 1 to 10, how many inside-out baboons would you give this movie?
So marks out of 10 for The Fly. I'm going to give it a good strong 7 inside-out baboons out of 10. I think it was... I don't have like a massive emotional attachment to it, like on nostalgia. Even though I did see it a long time ago, I never really returned to it or kind of felt much towards it. But watching it now, all these years later, I really appreciate the practical effects. I appreciate the chemistry between the leads. Really enjoyed the direction, the score, perfect time. You know, there's no wasted motion in this film. So yeah, a good strong 7.
Okay, right. 7 from you. I think I will give this... I'm going to give it 8 inside baboons out of 10. I have always really enjoyed this on every watching. I think everything is just perfect. Visual effects is the huge thing that stands out for me on this one. That's always my top thing that I look for in a horror. I look for how well everything looks visually. I mean, the score was great as well. I can't fault the plot. Everyone's acting, especially Gina Davis. I thought she was incredible. So yeah, I'm giving it 8. 8 inside baboons out of 10.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, I've got a couple of little bits of trivia and some deleted scenes, and then we'll just end with a nice fun little game that I've made.
Let's do it.
Trivia. Oh yeah.
Okay, so trivia. John Getz, when he was auditioning for the part of Stathis, he recalls having a terrible migraine, and when it came to filming his first scene where him and Veronica are in his office listening to the tape, David Cronenberg actually asked him if he could have a headache again.
Oh, right.
And that's why during the scene he has like his fingers on his head.
Okay.
So my next bit of trivia, did you know that Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis were actually in a relationship?
No, that would explain their chemistry then. What, before or after this or during?
Before and during.
Oh, right.
He actually campaigned for her to play the role of the journalist love interest of Seth Brundle.
Yeah, because like she wasn't like as big a star as she would go on to be. Yeah, but like he's obviously gone to bat for her, knowing that she was one of the few people who could play that character and make it somebody who's on the level with him. Because otherwise you could have somebody, I'd imagine, who's a bit weaker and kind of it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
If he was kind of dominating her, and it makes perfect sense when the things she does and the things she chooses to do. You don't feel sorry for her. You kind of, she's all action.
Yeah. Jeff Goldblum actually admits in an interview that he had to be told to leave set at one point because he was becoming a bit jealous with her scenes with John Getz. Yeah, his emotional attachment was getting the best of him, I think. So he had to be told to leave set.
Oh, right. Wow, that's weird. Obviously they split up, but then I guess maybe wanting to be in the film with her, he's still maybe holding a little flame for her. Obviously he was. Yeah, that's interesting. But it works, that helps the film.
Yeah, and as weird as it is, Jeff Goldblum wasn't the first choice to play Seth Brundle. There's actually quite a long list. I think there's about 5 or 6 actors in total. but people like John Malkovich, Michael Keaton, and Mel Gibson, they were all up for the role before Jeff.
I could see the first two, maybe not Mel Gibson, probably, but like
no. I could see Michael Keaton playing him.
Yes, he's got that kind of crazy energy and physicality. He could do it with being a comedian as well. He could, when he started off as doing stand-up, which is mad to think he went on to be Batman, isn't it? Really, he's just like mainly a comedic guy, and he was so good. But yeah, he could do this. Yeah, definitely. Malkovich could do it. I'm not that interested in seeing Mel Gibson do it.
No.
For some reason, even though he did a little bit crazy, like in Lethal Weapon and stuff, he's just not. I don't think he'd be willing to be almost be on par with his female lead.
Well, I think that is actually the reason why he turned it down, because he was doing Lethal Weapon.
Oh, okay. So he did okay. He did okay out of it then.
Yeah,
yeah. Made his whole career. Well, almost. Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier about a deleted scene.
Oh, yes.
So I think this takes place after he figures out what he's done, after he realises he's merged himself with a fly and he's starting to act a bit odd. He conducts an experiment where he actually puts the surviving baboon and a cat in the pods at the same time to see what would happen. And obviously they hybrid together, making this mutilated creature, and he has to kill it with a pipe.
Wow. So like a almost like cat dog. But,
cat monkey.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds really interesting, but you can kind of understand why they've left it out. Particularly if you're trying to hold on to him, you caring about him. So the more mean things he does, the less likely you are to care about him becoming a fly and like losing himself. You're like, well, you deserve it. You're not very nice. So yeah, I guess I can see why they've left that out.
Mm-hmm. The other deleted scene that I found was a scene where he's climbing up the outside of a building and he grows an insect limb out of his torso and he proceeds to chew it off.
Ooh, that would be okay. You could have had that one in. Yeah, that's quite they're both quite visual, practical, strange things to see. It's a judgment call, isn't it, by the director there, what to leave in and what to put out, because you've got to kind of he's obviously trying to keep the pacing going, and if he can get that point across with the nails falling out or this happening, then he might not need to have those things in it.
Yeah,
they're often deleted for a reason, aren't they?
Yeah, there is an alternative ending, and I'm actually really glad that they didn't put it in, because I feel it might ruin it. It's another dream sequence where Veronica imagines herself giving birth again, but to this time it's a butterfly.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, very odd.
Yeah, that's a bit more of an art housey kind of thing. I don't think it
doesn't really tie in very well.
No, and plus it's not like the film's not The Caterpillar, is it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
very true.
We can just mix around our insects and hope nobody notices.
Yeah, they didn't think about that one.
I'm not an expert on the insects, but I know you got me on here as an expert in insect. Yeah.
Right, I thought we could end up the episode with something quite fun, so I've made a little game. This is the Would You Rather game.
Okay.
So, first question. Would you rather stay the night in the Overlook Hotel with Jack Torrance, or stay the night in the Amityville Horror House with George Lutz?
I'm going to go Overlook. I really like snowy places. It is actually quite a wonderful sort of visual feast when they're driving there, and when the maze and everything. I know it's a kind of creepy, horrible place eventually, but it is quite a nice place. And if Jack can just kind of stay over his side of the hotel and I'll stay over mine, I'd be okay. I quite like hotels. I'm like a hotel person. I like getting up at stupid o'clock in the morning and eating as much breakfast as I can. That'd be great at the Overlook. There's a bar with a creepy barman. So yeah, no, I'm going with that. I'm not a big fan of like just regular American old haunted houses. No, let's go to a hotel.
Yeah, good. There's plenty of room. You can get away from him.
Yeah, true. I can hide. But what about you?
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. The Overlook Hotel for the same reasons.
It'd be a nice drive up there anyway. We could maybe car share.
Okay, would you rather be trapped on a spaceship with a xenomorph alien or in the jungle with the predator hunting you?
So, that's a tough one because love Predator, love Alien, but putting myself in that position, I don't want to be around those kind of big, muscly, jockey guys in Predator. I don't think I'd fit in very well with them. I don't think they'd like me. I think Arnold would bully me on the helicopter. So he'd be like, "You're a girly man." Like he'd just be like, look at your little arms." Like, I'm like, oh, okay. So at least I feel like Ripley and myself would be a good team. I'm allergic to cats, so we'd have to keep Jonesy away. But we could take on that mother. She'd be like, "Leave him alone, you bitch." Like, yeah, thanks. She'd look after me, I guess. Yeah, she would. She's pretty good at, well, I would say most of them die, but she's good at like she just at least try to protect her crew. And I know Arnie does too. I don't want to put him down. I don't want to put down the guys in Predator, but I just don't think I'm their kind of guy. So yeah, let's go with Alien. What about you?
Yeah, I was very on the fence about this one, but I would probably say Alien as well. Just thinking more about the weapons. I mean, in Predator, what have they got? Like machine guns?
Yeah, just damages the trees.
Aliens have got much better guns, some serious, and flamethrowers,
Yeah, that's true. I just watched a really bad knockoff that combines nearly all of the called Robo War, and it was basically like imagine Predator but with RoboCop as the Predator, but a really bad one that goes biddy 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 as it moves around. So yeah, I've got to say maybe that's what's put me off Predator as well after watching that horrendous film Robo War. It's on YouTube if anyone wants to check it out.
Okay, next question. Would you rather be in a Freddy Krueger nightmare or trapped in the Hellraiser dimension with Pinhead and the other Cenobites?
Oh, okay. So I feel Freddy would be quicker. And I feel like Cenobites would be tearing me apart slowly, pulling on things. And if you're in that pulling on things, but if you're into that kind of thing, super. But I'm gonna die, aren't I? Let's be honest. With both situations, I'm gonna die. So let's do it quickly. Let's Freddy just do his thing and chop me up. Be like, "See you later, bitch," and I'm gone. Yeah, so I'm going Freddy.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to be pulled apart by little hooks. If I'm honest, that does not. Yeah, that does not appeal.
Although, in Hellraiser there is a chance you can get away from them.
Oh yeah, I'd be like, I want to make a deal with you, and like as the film series go on, that becomes easier and easier to do. Just like, I'll swap this guy and this guy and this guy. So it's like, yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe it would have been easier to get out of it. Whereas with Freddy, I think once I'm in that dream, it's not going to end well, is it? No. Yeah, I'm still going to go Freddy though, just in case I don't want to be tortured.
Would you rather be confined in Santa Carla with the Lost Boys or Caught Under a Full Moon with the American Werewolf in London?
Lost Boys, 100%. 100%. Yeah, because we got Tim Capello playing the saxophone to entertain us. Who is a legend. I heard him playing Tequila last year, and he was really, really good. I recorded it. I've got it recorded somewhere. If we ever do Lost Boys, that's a good one to share. And yeah, he's just such a nice, legendary person. Maybe he would keep me company while I'm hanging out with the Lost Boys are not going to do anything. Am I a Lost Boy? That's my question. Am I one of them, or am I like caught by them?
No, you're not one of them. You're being caught by them.
Oh, that's not as good. I wanted to be a cool Lost Boy. I could hang out with Alex Winter to ask him questions about Bill and Ted. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still going Lost Boys. Whatever happens to me, at least it would be cool, and the soundtrack would be great. So yeah, even if I'm getting eaten, bitten, and whatever, dropped off a bridge or something.
All right, last one.
Okay.
Would you rather go through Seth Brundle's telepod with a rat or a spider? Okay, so it's 100% spider. I feel like, I don't know, you've done some research here. My big phobia is rats. Like, I have a real... literally, kids have played pranks on me at school over the years, like with little robotic rats, and just their slimy, horrible tails and little teeth. I just hate them. Just make me shudder. Spiders I've had to deal with because my wife hates spiders, and I have to pick them up and take them away for her. So 100% I'd rather go in there with a spider. The idea of me becoming part rat, I would be pushing that gun to my own head and going like, just kill me. I don't want to be a rat. Okay, right. I think if that's all, we will wrap up today's episode. If you've liked today's episode, be sure to go and like us on Facebook. Give us a follow. On there, we will announce what we will be covering for our next episode. Be sure to send us a message, leave us a comment on Facebook, or you can email us at allthingshorror666@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and each month we're going to do a poll pick on Facebook where you can vote for which film you want to hear us talk about. Okay, thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
We all go a little mad sometimes.